representing injured people. The IACT organization will be holding its event tomorrow to talk about preparations for this coming weekend. Anytime you get a big event in town, whether it's a festival or it's something of this nature, police have to pay attention, because that means more people, means more opportunity for some action on your behalf.
It does. It does. Generally, when there's an influx of people in town, there's also a correlation and influx of activity, and most of the activity that we have is certainly safe and a great time, but there's other times where it requires police attention. So we want to make sure always that we're staffed and prepared for sizable crowds, and certainly this weekend will be one of the most attended weekends in Indiana Borough of the year with IUP Homecoming. So we're always preparing, and IACT is just one step in that preparation process.
The unfortunate designation last week by a national publication as IUP as the #1 party school. There's no way to quantify something like that, but they decide to bestow that dubious title, and that probably is, for people in the region, something that might attract more people to town, and that, like I said, unfortunate is the word to apply there.
Yeah, I think that we'd be foolish to think that probably doesn't attract some or will attract some unwanted attention to Indiana and to IUP. But, we all know that IUP is a great school. We all know that Indiana has a great atmosphere and environment. We also know that the police department, our partners at the IUP Police Department, the Sheriff's Department, and the State Police are more than capable and prepared to keep everyone safe. So, our mission is to enhance quality of life of everyone in our community. And regardless of what perhaps a media outlet nationally may say, or however this comes about, we understand the IUP environment, we understand our Indiana environment, and we're always working every day to be right for that environment. So it doesn't add any intimidation to us, but it's something to consider, just like IUP's enrollment being up, and just like IUP's freshman population being up, because that's also, in the paper today, actually. So, all these things we have to plan and prepare for, because, again, an increase in students, an increase in visitors, an increase in celebratory events, nice weather. These things all add to what potentially could be larger gatherings, and so we want to be careful.
The weather will be a factor this weekend. It is beautiful right now, and if it were to stay like this, then you would have sort of a different nature of weekend celebrations than you will when the actual weekend gets here and brings with it colder temperatures and maybe some rain and some wind and things like that. Might move things indoor, compress some of the celebrations a little bit, and you have to approach it differently, I guess.
We will have to approach it. We will have to approach it differently, and but it's not unexpected. We've had cold and rainy homecomings. We've had snowy homecomings. We've had beautiful weather for homecomings. Really, the fundamental change would be whether large gatherings occur indoors or outdoors. But they both present challenges to safety. Just because it's happening indoor and out of public view doesn't mean that it's not dangerous, or doesn't mean that it's inherently safe. So we just have to prepare for that. And sometimes those things are more difficult to quantify from a police perspective than the outdoor gatherings. Mm-hmm. But also, people are moving quicker to get from one place to another. There's less gathering in perhaps public spaces, which can give the optic that there are less people moving. But I've yet to experience in my 22 plus years at the police department cold weather stopping anyone from doing anything that they want. It's just a matter of doing it differently. Yeah. So we'll prepare for every contingency, and if the weather turns out to be 90 degrees or 10 degrees, we'll have a plan in place for how to best handle it.
Are there concerns with traffic for this weekend?
Always concerns for traffic for this weekend. My concern for Friday and Saturday evenings are that there's going to be an increase in pedestrian traffic, and pedestrians, as I've said many times, if a crash occurs, it's easy to investigate, but our job is to prevent that. And so, pedestrians don't always have the same thought process as our motorists. They may be crossing at times that they shouldn't. Lights turn green, pedestrians see a crosswalk, they step out, regardless of whether they actually have the right of way or not. And similar with traffic, your light turns green, you want to make a right-hand turn. Sometimes motorists aren't paying enough attention to the people on the curb, and so that creates a danger. But traffic also for the homecoming parade, because Saturday morning we have a large parade that's going to go through town. It's going to tie up our main corridor for probably 2 to 3 hours of the actual parade time. So we have detour routes in place. Water Street is a primary detour route, Church Street, School Street. But traffic, everybody needs to take their time, leave early, get into town early, have breakfast somewhere in downtown Indiana, have a coffee, do the things that make sense to get you here safely. Use our parking garage to park. Plenty of places to park. Plenty of things to do if you arrive early. But the worst case scenario would be trying to rush to get somewhere and realizing that you just can't.
Yeah.
And then anxiety rises, and then negative things spiral from there.
Yeah. All right. So away from homecoming, Saturday morning, I want to give you an example of what motorists encounter sometimes in a downtown situation. You're well aware of things like this. Right out in front of the radio station, as a matter of fact, I'm crossing through that intersection. So against the light, this young man walks across the road in front of me, uses the crosswalk, never looked up. Head was down in his phone the whole way. Traffic that was crossing on 9th Street both ways, everybody stopped for him. Never looked up, never acknowledged that there was traffic that was all waiting for him to pass, kept the head down in the phone the whole way, and just went on his way at whatever pace he was going to walk. Extremely dangerous for people to behave in such a way, but also it calls upon motorists to really keep your eyes open and pay attention, because there are people going to do that nowadays.
They are. I mean, it's definitely a challenge, and it's something as a parent my wife and I are trying to instill in our kids, is to be vigilant. When your head's down on a cell phone, you can't be safe crossing a street. When your head's down in a cell phone, you can't be paying attention to your surroundings. You can't see someone potentially walking up to cause you harm. You can't see a potential danger somewhere else, or a trip or a fall. And, these are things, constant education is probably the best that we can handle. But, in that situation that you described, it takes everybody's best effort, because thank God in your situation, there were motorists paying attention, and that there weren't motorists with their head down on the cell phone.
Yeah, that happens too.
Which sometimes we see with too much frequency. But yeah, the pedestrian population is tough because they're transient. It's hard to predict for the police department, it's hard to predict when a pedestrian is going to cross a specific intersection at a specific time. So it's a little difficult to monitor, but certainly no shortage of danger, which is why we have to care for each other. I'd coming on the radio and doing things proactively to try and, get the word out that it's everyone's responsibility, and that even if it doesn't feel like I should have to stop as a motorist, the fact that you did stop potentially saved someone's life. It made someone safer, whether they realize it or not. And that is a true value, I think, of a community-based police department, is to be able to get ahead of these things. And we weren't going to be able to prevent everything, but we're going to try, because that's our job. I
want to bring up a situation that occurred yesterday, not in this community, but in another one, Hempfield School District. Students, several students, 3 of them, I believe it was, were found with guns in their backpacks at the Hempfield School. When that alarm goes into state police, you know how they're going to zip out. Or when that alarm comes into Indiana Borough Police, if something of that nature should happen at one of our schools, boom, you guys are in action, and the alert is always on, but it gets heightened then. When you hear of a dangerous situation developing, whether it be at a school or at a business, the response to that has to be measured as to what's going to be most appropriate, because if it's somebody with a gun that is actively involved in a shooting, that's one way to respond, and you're going to respond in a different fashion than the report that, hey, these kids got caught with a gun in their backpack, but everything's under control. Either way, you have to respond appropriately.
That's right. They're all level of threats, but there are certainly different levels of threats. And so, these are just things that we practice, train, talk about every day. Responding to a threat is not the best part of our job, but it's probably the most essential function of our job. And we're well prepared to do that. But yes, every time the radio breaks, an officer's life is at risk, a citizen's life is at risk. First we have to get to a call safely. Mm-hmm. So we have to gauge, it's all about decision making. Well, what does my travel route need to be? How fast do I need to get there? What am I willing to risk to get there based on what I'm going to potentially prevent when I get there? And then it's about the response, So these aren't things where police officers call somebody and say, hey, the radio went off. This is the call. What should I do? Can you give me some guidance? It is inherent. It is based on training. It is based on skill, compassion, bravery, heroism. It's the whole thing. And so, there's no guidance that I or any chief of police could give that could guide every single possibility or eventuality that a police officer or our community is going to face. But we can put together solid plans. We can give praise when praise is due. We can correct action when action needs corrected. We can talk about things. We can deal with each other's stress levels and community stress levels, and these are all things that we should be doing. But yeah, it takes skill. It takes good decision making, and high character, high skill, and courage.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so IACT meeting will be tomorrow, and we'll learn more about this. But I'm assuming extra police patrols. Everybody's on duty this weekend, right?
That's right. Indiana should not expect anything less than what we've put forward before, which is a robust police presence to keep everybody safe. And so our partners with the state police, our partners at IUP, our partners at the Sheriff's Department, our partners in even Blairsville will be helping us out. So there will be an increased police presence, but the police presence will be to enhance quality of life of everyone here. We're going to focus on peace, safety, and comfort like we always do. We're going to continue to plan and prepare up to the last minute of every day for eventualities that could occur during that day, and we'll be well prepared. That is for sure.
He's Indiana Borough Police Chief Justin Schawl. Thanks for the visit.
Thank you.
It is the voice of Indiana County, WCCS.